Dumelang Sambanani, good evening South Africa and welcome to Expressions. And I know you know this by now because Expressions is definitely the place to air your views. Kina host Elena Jacqueline Mapala.
Your number one youth current affairs show. I'm your host, Mkolisi Masango. Now, coming to you live this Thursday evening. Jackie, the big question this evening is the call for free higher education and training legitimate and justified?
I mean, that's a very important question, especially now because matriculants are writing. Universities have been anxiously waiting for the release of a much-anticipated Fees Commission report. Extracts taken from a leaked copy of the report were published recently, and they have revealed that free universal education was not possible. However, speculations are rife that President Jacob Zuma is planning to announce free education across the board through a controversial funding scheme. This would see the cutting back of departmentalized, I suppose, budgets to make 40 billion available for the 2018 academic year. But before we tackle this also important discussion, let's find out what our street journo found out on the street. Take a look at this.
Hi Expressions, I'm your street journalist for the day. My name is Zulu. What requirements do you think someone would have to meet in order for free education to apply to them?
There can be free education for the poor, not for everyone. The ones that are rich and can afford higher education must be allowed to pay.
I believe it is possible, but at times it depends on who's in charge.
Good performance and all of that. Obviously, when you're a good performer, you need to be rewarded, with something.
Definitely 70% because you need to work hard to get that free education. Because you can't get 50% and then expect to study for free.
Like, our economy is not really stable to give everybody who can necessarily afford it. I feel like we should prioritize first and give it to the people who really need it.
There are a lot of underprivileged children who are much smarter than other rich kids, but they can't get into a proper universities because they don't have the funds.
The 4 million from NFCs that was down the drain or given out to one student was possible to happen. So why would it be impossible for them to give out the money to the students? Yeah.
Would you say that there would be an uprising or a seriously difficult time for students if the president wasn't able to come up with this money?
That's obvious. We are gonna strike because it's obvious that if we don't get what we need, we're gonna strike. People are sleeping under desks right now. They're sleeping outside. At the same time, they have to study and go to school. I'm talking about people who are learning medicine. They have to sleep outside, some of them, because they don't have money to go to rest.
This year, I haven't been able to see my academic record. I've been kicked out of my residence because of my financial. I owe UP almost 200,000 rands. I think it's 168,000 rands. And if it had not been for the strike that happened last year, I wouldn't have been able to register. And there is no way that I can get almost 200,000 rands with my mom being a teacher and supporting a household of 5.
Some of the comments coming from the streets there from you young people. But to help me dissect this issue and take this discussion further, I'm joined in studio by Usandla Mtochwa from the EFF. I have to get that right, as well as Ulwando Majiza, who is from SESCO. Gentlemen, welcome to Expressions. I really know I need to work on my Xhosa, hey? I need to work on my Xhosa. But Mbubuhedi, as you know, the best things come in twos. And if you're wondering what's happened to my co-host, Mkolisi, he's obviously manning our social media side and bringing in some of the comments that you're going to be sharing on this topic. But we are going to get straight into it. And I think I just want to pose the poll question that we have today around whether if fees must fall, is it still a legitimate and justifiable cause for young people? Let me start with you, I think.
From what I know, of course it is a justifiable and legitimate call, because our call is not just for fees to fall. We want free, quality, decolonized education. And to have that, we need it from the government. So that's what we want to. That's what we're asking from the government itself. Just free, quality, decolonized education, because education itself is a social good. For us, Black people, it takes it out of our financial for our financial drains that we have as also that our parents have.
I mean, we heard one of the comments that was coming across from the young people in the streets saying, Uti, you've got medical students who are sleeping under desk. And I mean, that is dismal to understand that young people are studying under those conditions. But I think, Londo, I want to ask you, especially about the speculation about this announcement that should be coming from President Jacob Zuma around the fact that free education is actually feasible. I mean, what are your comments on that?
Well, the speculation is actually correctly placed. We do believe that education is a very strong weapon for the developmental trajectory of our country. We believe that the introduction of free education will go a long way in ensuring that we reduce the inequality gap, in ensuring that we take out several families out of their social and economic misery. Therefore, we do hope and believe that the president will do the correct thing and pronounce on free education. We had declared in our National General Council as the biggest student movement that this year would be the year for free education. Our ultimate
I want to come in there. I want to come in there because I do feel that there are some very important issues I want to address, especially as you as SASCO. I mean, right now, EFF is a tidal wave that is sweeping across all the universities. And I mean, as you're speaking right now, the question that is coming across in my head is, are you still relevant? If now the EFF is almost taking over every single university in this country, are you still relevant, and are you still the right, at least I guess, student movement to be representing the fees must fall?
Certainly we were the only credible and capable parliament of students in the country with an unquestionable track record of ensuring access to higher education. It is very stingy of the truth to suggest that the EFF is sweeping. I mean, we've just swept at UKZN, UWC, Nelson Mandela University, TUT, University of the Free State, in Limpopo, Suka, our PYA ally, together with SASCO, we won there. What has created a misguided impression that the EFF is sweeping is the undemocratic means that they use when they have lost at the ballot.
I'll let Sandra basically address you on that.
We win elections when it's time to constitute. They then collude against SASCO. But you find that the voters that would have voted, they have voted SASCO. But in constituting meetings, the EFF, PASMA, AfriForum, DA,
Okay, so
they
London,
enter
let me
into
come in
adulterous
there.
relationships and create something
London,
new.
let me come in there because I think I do want us to bring it back to what we're talking about today, which is the fees must fall in itself. And I want to ask you, I mean, do you feel, Sandra, that this announcement that was, leaked, do you feel that it's the right thing to do, or do you think that there's a deeper political game that is being played where, students are not at the forefront or prioritized? What do you think?
We know our president is a political maneuverist, in English, we could say that. But also, what we want for education, cool. So we're not really against the call. If he pronounces that we get free education, it's fine. But our concern is, how is it going to be implemented? Because we feel like the ANC government doesn't have the capacity to actually implement it well. We know that the Ministry of Higher Education and Training right now just underspent in NSFAS itself 4.3 billion rands. While we still have students still sleeping in libraries, still sleeping in labs, still going hungry during the day on campus. And so that is our worry. Who gets it? We want all students to get free education. But then how is it going to be implemented?
Okay, so for you, there's a little bit of suspicion around whether this is a legitimate announcement or not, and whether students are being prioritized. Well, Mobuhedu Kokhaya, I'm sure you're probably a matriculant yourself, and you're wondering whether this fees must fall is going to be your last hope. Make sure you watch Expression, because maybe we will have an answer for you. Stay with us. We'll be back right after this.
I guess you still with Expressions, your #1 youth current affairs show. Now, inkulu into esikhuluma ngayo namhlanje kusihlwa, we discussing the issue of free higher education. We ask, is the call for free higher education and training legitimate and justified? And of course, I've got young people in the studio to come and talk to me about this evening. Now, joining us from our Cape Town studio, I have Tandanani Wagwamlambo, who is in Cape Town, as well as Putindumiso Mpanza, also in the studio. Good evening and welcome to Expressions.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
With the panelists coming up this evening, what is this? Is this whole thing politicking or what? Are we politicking with the future of the millions of students across the country?
Yes, no, thank you very much for your question. Well, it is politics. One of our panelists in the studio just said that they don't trust the ANC, that actually it has the capability to actually carry out the functions of promoting or actually making sure that the mandate is being fulfilled. So it's a matter of overthrowing the current government. We know about the agendas, the political agendas that the EFF and the DA have, because they want to overturn and make people believe that the African National Congress cannot achieve anything, cannot live up to the standards of society.
Yeah. Now, at the back of that, when you are against university shutdowns, we'll get to that. I just need to quickly go to Cape Town, where we pick up with Tandani, who's joining us there. Tandani, good evening and welcome to Expressions, sir.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
Now, you from the Fees Must Fall movement, and there has been lots of movement happening there in Cape Town with regards to Fees Must Fall. Take us through the progress and how far are you guys with that right now?
Essentially, we're still quite far because we still don't have free decolonized education. But at the University of Cape Town, we've set some demands. We've sent them to management. And unfortunately, we've had a breakdown of negotiations, and therefore there's been some disruptions and protests from students, and also there's been some retaliation from management with private security on campus, as well as police presence, heavy police presence on campus.
Now, there has been some talk, of course, with those gripping images that came in last week from Cape Town, from all the protests that were happening right now. Now, young people are quite uncertain as to what is going to be happening about their futures now, especially when it comes to social media as well. Most young people sharing a similar sentiment that you guys are probably, not really speaking to what their concerns are at the moment. What would you say to put their minds at ease, perhaps?
Well, I think we mustn't always lose sight of the goal. In everything we do, we must actually have an equation. A UCT student, Javulo, said last year that we must always have an equation. Everything that we do as students, will it provide and will it lead us to free education? If yes, then we must do it. So essentially, a lot of the media has portrayed us as people who don't want to write exams, as people that are just protesting because of the fun of it. But that's not the case. We have a legitimate cause and we're not being heard. And I think it's a very important question which you asked earlier on is, can this be used as politicking? Is this politicking? I think that we must be very careful around Fees Must Fall, because we've seen in the past that it has been used and some people have tried to infiltrate, and different political parties have tried to grab control of Fees Must Fall. But to every young person, especially those that are still in high school, those that are watching TV, they must know and they must understand that this is a genuine cause. I don't even know why we're even questioning that. This is a genuine cause, and we are going to fight for free decolonized education.
Tandani Mlambo joining us there from Cape Town from the Fees Must Fall movement. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Let's just quickly check in with social media. Buyani says, guys, it's a must be on our heads with these people. It's eating all this money and it will never be free education. Trust me, hashtag Expressions. And that's the winning hashtag. Modisa says, education needs to be free for needy students, I'm assuming, after matriculants, which oppose that. You will find that those needy students are smart more than the rich kids that block their vision and future goals. Now, Pilela says, some of us are poor. We cannot afford to pay fees. The education can be free in this country. That's hashtag Expressions. PJ Kumalo says, we totally need it. Government can give grants to people. Even education is important. The government should make a plan because we do need to be educated to be successful. Now, Tandani was saying that there will be a shutdown because this cause is very close to their heart. Ngifuna ukwazi kuwe, you said you were against the shutdown of ikolo or universities there. Why?
Right. No, thank you very much for your question. Let's look at the University of Pretoria for an example. 2016, fees must fall. We had a shutdown because of emergency. Then the university also trying to protect the property, but that's not the argument. Why I don't support university shutdowns is because what almost happened is that the entire year almost got forfeited, which means right now I'm supposed to be, I should be a second-year student. Now I'm a third-year student, but I would be a second-year student. Now, I come from a poor background. I need to complete my qualification, and if we shut down institutions, what's going to happen? And secondly, we are not fighting universities. The mistake that universities make is that we think that we are challenging, the universities, and we think they can give us free education. They cannot. We are challenging the government. We must shut down national key points, your legislatures, parliament, union buildings, Ora Tambo Airport, King Shaka International Airport. Right. So those are the areas that we're supposed to be shutting down, and not
universities.
Not universities.
And of course, Thandani, I know we had already tried to let you go, but I need you to quickly respond to what the gentleman here in studio has been saying. What do you have to say? He says no to shutting down our universities.
Look, I think your other guest there is saying a bit much more than no to shutting down universities. I mean, he's talking about national key points and so forth and so on. And I think that is a problem with fees must fall. If we start talking about national key points and everything else, now we're going towards, the Arab Spring type of situations. Now we're talking about regime change. And I think we need to move away from that, because that can easily lead us down a path that we don't want to go to. In terms of shutdowns, you must understand why in the first place we do shut down institutions. It is only because the institutions do not listen to us unless we apply pressure. So you say that I cannot afford to pay my fees this year. Particularly, let's talk about last year, 2016. A lot of students couldn't afford to pay their fees. We shut down and they managed to come back. If we had not shut down, most of those students would not have come back. So unfortunately, it seems that the way we react and the way we shut down is the only way that management can actually take us seriously in terms of financial needs and in terms of free education.
It seems like he also would like to put in there a quick response. I'm going to give you the opportunity before I go to break.
Yes, absolutely. No, look, University of Pretoria, because of shutdowns, what happened was that they introduced the hybrid teaching strategy, which is an optimal blend of face-to-face and online, visual assessments and teaching. Now, you get, UP is a very diverse institution. You get students from poor backgrounds who don't even know what internet is. And only 1% at UP, this is research done by Dr. Kola Adiemo, only 1% had access to the internet. And many students failed because of that teaching strategy, because they had to write exams online, they had to submit online. So, it's very, the dynamics differ, from institutions to institutions. But University of Pretoria, for us, it did not work. But many students got excluded academically. They failed. It's reality.
Wow, signed, sealed, delivered. It seems like technology has made things way much easier for us. And of course, we're going to catch on with most of your comments when we return from the break. We continue with this all-important discussion. Yay, siyabuya straight after this.
Welcome back. You are watching Expressions here on SABC1, and we are talking about the also important issue around the fees must fall. And the poll question that we're asking you, Kochaye, is the call for free higher education legitimate and justified? And of course, I'm still with my guests, and unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap things up, but I think a lot of really important sentiments came across. The one thing that I was able to pick up is that it just does not really seem that there is a lot of agreement, there's consensus on the right type of approach to getting the biggest or the greatest impact in this. Because on the one hand, you hear students saying, you should not shut down the institutions. And on the other hand, they're saying, nobody's listening to us. We have to shut them down. And I just want to talk a little bit about this. I mean, how do we get a consensus? How do we get agreement in this cause?
What I think is that we need support from the university vice chancellors themselves, the management of the universities, because they know what we want. For us to actually get free education, we get this support from the universities. We move it up to government together in unity with the universities themselves. So shutting down campuses, we've shut down for 2 years. There've been so many casualties of shutdowns. People have been in mental institutions. Some have committed suicide because of shutdowns. Some went home. They've been academically excluded because of time for not able to study. So this is what we think as the EFF, that we've tried shutting down campuses. It does not work because the university itself is already anticipating, the government itself is already anticipating. They just militarize campuses as if we are terrorists in our own country.
Okay, so again, and I want to reiterate this, there are matriculants who are watching this show, and for them, Fees Must Fall is not just a cause, it's their last hope. Poverty in this country is a reality. It's not a story, it's not a nice narrative that we use in order to sell shows or to make noise in the newspapers. It's a reality that people live in. And I want you to tell us, Lwando, for those young people who are watching the show, I mean, is there hope for them? Are we going to realize free education in your lifetime?
Most certainly, we are going to realize free education in our lifetime, in this generation's lifetime. We are quite disappointed that the president has taken about 3 months to study the report and now referred it to an interministerial committee. We have seen also the biased rating agencies reacting on the basis of a speculation. We should not be discussing the need to have free education. What we should be discussing is the ultimate goal of actually even stopping making education a commodity wherein its production and accumulation is dependent on how much money one has or one does not have. We should not even be having a discussion of who is going to benefit or how they are going to benefit. And our message to those matriculants is that we do understand now, as Ndumiso was saying, there are people who have signed contracts of articles, PAs, who are in the middle of exams in my campus. So if you actually want to lose this year, you might be tripping yourself in the butt. We want to assure them, the matriculants, that come the 2018 academic year, we'll shall force those gates open. If the pronouncement is not
Wait, I want to
there.
understand that. When you're saying you try force those gates open, what are you saying exactly?
There will be no deserving students who will be outside of the system.
So you're going to force your way
So yes, we will not start with the academic year unless free education is implemented in 2018.
Wow. Really powerful words there. Got a lot of food for thought. But I want to say a big thank you to my guests. Thank you so very much for sharing just a lot of the insight and perspective on this very important issue. And I think being a voice for young people and giving them at least hope around this movement. So a big thank you.
Yeah,
Nico?
absolutely. And of course, we do have our video diary for this evening. Please
talk about youth empowerment, because I believe there are a lot of young, aspiring and successful entrepreneurs in South Africa that we as the youth could learn from. I feel like it's a very important subject matter, and as an aspiring entrepreneur, I think this is a very important subject. Thanks.
I look forward to having that conversation.
too,
And of
me
course,
too.
you know, today's topic was so important because Abanda Basha also put an emphasis on how stressful this whole thing is. So hopefully there'll be finality to it.
Yeah, but a big good luck to everybody who is writing expression, is wishing you the very best. Come 2018, let's see
Have
you
a
going into those
spectacular
universities.
evening
Bye.
going forward. Bye-bye.